To keep yourself updated, subscribe to Indigo Learn and click the bell icon and download our app OneFin to start learning on the go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope all of you are doing very well. So before we start, let me know if you are able to listen to me. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So before starting with the class today, let me just give you a brief intro as in how we are going to complete the entire course in 14 days. So let's now talk of how things will be done. So as you know, entirely the course goes around 90 to 100 hours, and we are going to finish it in 35 hours only. Now, let me give you a plan of how we are going to do it. So we'll spend most of our time on the most important topic, which is the Indian Contract Act 1872. So we'll start with the Contract Act today. We will spend over somewhere around 12.5 hours for the Indian Contract Act, post which we will spend somewhere around 7 hours on Sale of Goods Act as well as Partnership Act, matlab, on each, matlab, 7 hours on the Sale of Goods Act and 7 hours on the Partnership Act. Companies Act would take somewhere around 5 hours, and the LLP Act would take somewhere around 2.5 to 3 hours. So this is how we are going to complete the entire course in 14 days. Now that, as you all know, that this is a fast track batch, let me give you certain rules and regulations for this fast track batch. So this is a fast track revision batch. We are going to cover the entire thing, do not worry about it, but this will be a lot more interactive because I'll be asking you a lot many questions, presuming that you have done a little bit of study of the course. So we will revise everything, we will cover everything, but I want participation from your side as well, because if you're not answering to questions, you will not be able to understand things. It is a fast track batch, and this will be in a fast track manner as well. Now, talking of how we are going to cover things, we are going to cover things purely from examination point of view, because this fast track batch is purely from examination point of view. We will understand how you write answers to questions, because this is one problem which is faced by most of you when preparing. So yeah, we will understand how to write answers to questions, and this is going to be from examination perspective. So these were some of the rules and regulations which you will have to follow during the entire 14 days, and I want maximum participation from all of you all. We are putting in our best foot forward, so we want you also to participate as much as possible to make these 14 days the best 14 days for your completion of paper 2 part A business laws. Now, before we start, let me ask you a question. As we are starting with this topic, law, what do you understand by this term law? What do you mean by law? You can message your answers in the chat box. What is law? See, I have just now stated that I want maximum participation from your side, because if you're not participating in this fast track batch, you will lose upon very important points. So what is law is my question. Set of rules for the people of society, correct? So in simple terms, law is nothing but a set of rules and regulations which govern the behavior of people in a society, how people work. And in case, say, someone has entered into some agreement and someone fails to perform the agreement, what will happen in such a situation? Say, for example, you want to purchase the latest iPhone 14, and someone is offering this iPhone 14 to you for 80,000 rupees. Say this is a hypothetical situation. The person is offering you iPhone 14 for 80,000 rupees, and he agrees to give this iPhone to you, sell this iPhone to you on say 15th of October. Now on 15th of October, when you go to that person to purchase the iPhone, he refuses to give the iPhone to you for 80,000, and now you have to purchase the same phone from the market for 85,000 rupees. Now in this situation, you have faced some problem. What the problem is? The problem is that you had to pay 5,000 extra for the same thing which someone had promised to give you for 80,000. Now in this situation, there should be something which protects your interest, because you are paying 5,000 extra for the same phone which someone had offered to sell you for 80,000. So in this situation, law comes into picture and protects people from the mishappenings which happen with them. And that is why there is a need of rules and regulations, because if there are no rules and regulations, there will be a lot of chaos. There'll be a lot of problems. People will do frauds and there'll be no way out. There'll be no one protecting people who are suffering because of fraud. And that is why law becomes or plays a very important role. Now, talking of the laws which we are going to study, as you all know that there are 5 acts as a part of your foundation syllabus: Contract Act, Sale of Goods Act, Partnership Act, LLP Act, and the Companies Act. We are going to start with the Contract Act today. So now, as we are starting with the Contract Act is an act which governs the contract. Now, contracts are something which we enter into on a daily basis, which we enter into on a regular basis. And there has to be certain rules and regulations which govern these contracts which are being entered into by people. And that's where the Contract Act plays a very important role. Now, talking of Contract Act, as you all know, every act has certain sections. And starting with Section 1 of the Contract Act, what does Section 1 talk of? What does Section 1 of every act talk of? Come on, now I have already explained you the rules and regulations that you have to be participative and interactive. If you're not participative and interactive, you will not be able to finish the entire course in 14 days. What does Section 1 of any act talk of? What does Section 1 of any act talk about?
Title and commencement, ma'am.
Title, correct. So Section 1 basically talks of title, extent, and commencement. So title, as you all know, is the Indian Contract Act 1872. Now, talking of extent of the act, the Indian Contract Act 1872 is applicable to whole of India. Which means there are no exceptions. This act is applicable to the entire country. Now, talking of the commencement of this act. When did the Indian Contract Act come into force? Can someone tell me when did this act come into force?
September 1st of 1872.
1st of September 1872. So 1st of September 1872 was the date when this act had come into force. So now this act also received assent, but the assent was received on 25th of April 1872. Assent, basically, as you all must be knowing how an act is made. An act is made, it is passed in both the houses of parliament, and then it goes to the president of the country. The president gives assent to the bill which is passed in the both the houses of parliament, and that's how an act is made, or an act comes into force. So this act, the Indian Contract Act, received the assent on 25th of April 1872, and it came into force. That is, it became applicable on from 1st of September 1872. Now, talking of how relevant or why is this law of contract very important is because contracts are a part of our day-to-day lives. Everything which happens, the basis of everything is a contract or an agreement. And if you do not know what are the rules which govern a contract, what are the rules which govern an agreement, how will we identify whether a contract which is being made is a valid contract or not, or whether an agreement which is made is a valid agreement or not? So let's take two examples, and on the basis of two examples, we will now understand what is a contract and what is an agreement. So the first example is between Vinod and Rajiv. Now there's a agreement which is being made between Mr. Vinod and Rajiv. So Rajiv is Vinod's son, and Rajiv is appearing for his CA examinations. So Vinod, he promises to get the latest iPhone 14 Pro for Rajiv if Rajiv clears his CA examination. So now here, there's a promise which is being made by a father to his son that if his son clears the CA examination, he will get him the latest iPhone 14 Pro. Now Rajiv, he is motivated to study even harder now because he is going to get the latest iPhone 14 Pro if he clears the examination. And with his hard work, Rajiv also successfully clears the examination. Now, after clearing the examination, the first thing which Rajiv does is he goes to his dad and tells his dad that I have cleared my examination and now I want iPhone 14 Pro. Where's my iPhone? To which his dad, that is Vinod, he replies that that was just to make you study harder, and that was only to motivate you. I actually did not intend to give you the latest iPhone 14 Pro, but because in order to boost your morale, I said that. Now, in this situation, you tell me, can Rajiv take any action against his father? Can Rajiv file a case against his father, or can Rajiv sue his father because he did not fulfill his promise of giving him the latest iPhone 14? Can Rajiv do any of that thing? He
No, ma'am.
cannot, right? But let's take another example. So the other example is between Sanjeev and Radha. So Sanjeev is a shopkeeper and Radha is his customer. Sanjeev, he sells 5 kg of sugar to Radha for rupees 450. However, Radha does not make the payment of rupees 450 to Sanjeev. Sanjeev has already delivered 5 kg of sugar to Radha, but Radha, she does not make the payment of rupees 450 to Sanjeev. Now, in this situation, can Sanjeev take any action against Radha? Can the shopkeeper take action against his customer in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So in both the examples which we have seen here, there's a drastic difference. There's a difference. In one situation, we've seen that action can be taken, and in the other situation, we've understood that no action can be taken. Now, why is that so? The reason being, in one situation, there is legal obligation or legal enforceability. However, in the other situation, there's no legal enforceability. There's no legal obligation on Vinod to get iPhone 14 Pro for his son Rajiv. However, there's a legal obligation on Radha to pay rupees 450 for the sugar which she has purchased from Sanjeev. So now, what we are trying to understand from these examples is what is a contract and what is an agreement. So one essential element of a contract is that there has to be a legal obligation or there has to be legal enforceability. Now I'll give you 3 equations which will form the basis of understanding what contract, agreement and promise. So contract, the first equation here is contract is equal to agreement plus enforceability by law, which means for a contract to come into existence, there has to be an agreement, but not only an agreement, there also has to be legal enforceability. Now, what does legal enforceability mean? Legal enforceability basically means something which creates a legal obligation, something which is creating a legal obligation on the parties who are involved. So for a contract to come into existence, there has to be an agreement and enforceability by law. Contract is defined in section 2 clause H of the Indian Contract Act, and it states contract is nothing but an agreement which is enforceable by law. So for a contract to come into existence, there has to be an agreement, but only agreement cannot make a contract. Agreement which is legally enforceable will become a contract. Now, what is an agreement? Agreement, the equation of agreement goes like this. Agreement is equal to promise plus consideration. So there has to be a promise, and that promise should also involve some consideration. Now, can someone tell me, in this situation of Sanjeev and Radha, what is the consideration here for Sanjeev and what is the consideration for Radha?
Ma'am, the consideration for Sanjeev is the cash amount which the Radha has to pay for the sugar, while the consideration for Radha is the 5 kg of sugar.
Correct. So the consideration for Sanjeev is the amount which he is receiving for on sale of sugar, and for Radha it is definitely the sugar which he is purchasing. So in this situation, there's consideration, there's exchange of something, there's something in return which both the parties are receiving. There's consideration here as well. There's consideration in this first example as well. Consideration for Rajiv is iPhone 14 and consideration for Vinod is his son clearing the examination. But here this consideration, can you call it as a proper consideration, or it is only a promise which has been made here? There's no legal enforceability, or there's no intention to create a legal relationship here in this first example, and that is the reason why here there is an agreement but there's no contract. In our first example, there's an agreement but there's no contract. However, in the second situation, there is legal enforceability which makes this agreement between Sanjeev and Radha a contract. So are you all clear with what is a contract and what is an agreement? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. So contract is nothing but an agreement which is enforceable by law, whereas the second equation tells us an agreement is nothing but promise plus consideration. So for a contract to come into existence, there has to be an agreement. Now, talking of what is a promise, promise is nothing but an offer which is accepted. An accepted proposal is a promise. So the equation of promise goes like this. It is nothing but offer plus acceptance. So for a contract to come into existence, the first step or the first requirement is that there has to be an offer. So the first step for a contract to come into an existence is that there has to be an offer. What is the second step? What is the second step? The first step has to be an offer. There has to be an offer which is made.
Promise.
Now, sorry?
Offer, then it should be promise.
Offer, then it should be promise. But offer will become a promise only when it is accepted. So after offer, there has to be acceptance of an offer. Now, when an offer is accepted, it becomes a promise, or a promise is also called as an accepted proposal. Okay, so offer is also called as proposal. So a proposal, when accepted, becomes a promise. But apart from promise, there also has to be some consideration which will make it a valid agreement. And this agreement has to be enforceable by law, and only then we can say that a contract has come into existence. So for a contract, two essential elements: agreement and enforceability by law. So what is a contract? A contract is nothing but an agreement which is enforceable by law, and contract is defined in section 2 clause H of the Indian Contract Act 1872. Are you all clear with what is a contract? Any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. So as you all can see, the important terms: contract defined in 2 clause H and as an agreement which is enforceable by law. Importance here is legal enforceability. Talking of what is an agreement, we have understood in the equation that agreement is promise plus consideration. But you cannot write the equation in exam, and neither you can write any examples in your examination. You'll have to write the definition in your exam. So how will you remember the definition of agreement? Agreement is defined in section 2 clause E as every promise or set of promises forming consideration for each other. So only two important terms which you have to remember here, and that is promise and consideration. If you remember the equation, you will definitely be able to write the definition of agreement very easily. Remember promise, remember consideration. So what is agreement? Agreement is promise or set of promises which form consideration for each other. So that becomes the definition of agreement. Simple, easy. Will you now remember the definition of agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So agreement is nothing but a promise or set of promises which are forming consideration for each other. Now moving on to what is promise. Now we talk about definition of promise. If you look at definition of promise and definition of acceptance, it is one and the same. So section 2 clause B defines promise and acceptance as well. So talking of what is promise, when a person to whom a proposal is made signifies his assent to the proposal becomes accepted, and accepted proposal becomes a promise. So what happens? The first thing which we have understood is that there has to be an offer or a proposal. So who can accept this? Only the person to whom you're making the offer can accept the offer. So when the person to whom the offer is made, he gives his assent to the offer, he gives his confirmation to that offer or the proposal. In that situation, the proposal is accepted, and an accepted proposal is a promise. So what is promise? Promise comes into place when a proposal is accepted. And when do we say a proposal is accepted? A proposal is said to be accepted when the person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent to the proposal. Clear? So what is promise? When the person to whom the proposal is made signifies his assent to the proposal is said to be accepted, and this accepted proposal is said to be a promise. Simple. Always, whenever you're reading any definition, break it into parts and read it. So for the equation of promise, we have understood that promise is offer plus acceptance. So in the definition, the word offer is not used, the word proposal has been used. So we use the word proposal for the definition. So when the person to whom the proposal is made, he gives his assent to the proposal is said to be accepted, and this accepted proposal is a promise. So that simplifies our definition of promise as well. Are these important terms, contract, agreement, and promise, clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no? Yes? I don't see many
Yes, ma'am.
responding to my question. See, if you're not responding, you will face problems ahead. Yes? Okay. So now you all tell me, what are the differences between an agreement and a contract? You all now know what is an agreement. You all also know what is a contract. So tell me, what are the differences between an agreement and a contract? I will also understand with this how much you have understood. All of you have been saying yes since so long. Enforceability by law. So contracts, they are legally enforceable, whereas agreement may or agreement is not legally enforceable, or rather they may not create a legal obligation. What else? All contracts are agreements. Are all agreements also contracts?
No, ma'am.
No. All contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contracts. The reason for the same is that agreement is an inherent part of a contract. However, if an agreement is not in place, there wouldn't be a contract which is coming into picture. So for a contract to come into existence, there has to be an agreement. But for an agreement to come into existence, there is no necessity of a contract. As a contract is nothing but an agreement enforceable by law, contract includes an agreement. So all contracts are agreements. However, all agreements are not necessarily contracts. Apart from it, which is a wider term? Is agreement a wider term, or is contract a wider term?
Contract.
Sorry,
Contract.
are you sure?
Agreement, ma'am. Agreement, ma'am.
Agreement. Why agreement? Do not
Legally enforceable.
legally enforceable. A
And
contract.
also social agreement, ma'am.
So when we talk of agreement and you say that agreement is wider term, it basically means that agreement includes legally enforceable things as well as things which are of social and domestic nature. However, when we talk of a contract, contract includes only those agreements which are legally enforceable, and that is the reason why agreement is a wider term and contract is not a wider term. So these were some of the differences between an agreement and a contract. So the first one is definitely enforceability by law. Then there's a definition. Agreement is a wider term, contract is a narrower one, and all agreements are not contracts. However, all contracts are definitely agreement. Now that we are talking of contract, let's now talk of some essential elements of a valid contract. What are the essential elements of a valid contract? So the essential elements of a valid contract, they've been divided into two categories. First one are basic general essential elements, and the second one is as specified under section 10 of the Act. So let's first start with the general essential elements and then we'll start with section 10. So section 10 is not actually a point-wise thing. Section 10 is a statement. It is a sentence which has been divided into different points. So we'll first start with the general essential elements and then we'll go to section 10. So the first general essential element of a contract is that there has to be two parties. Can you enter into a contract with your own self? You make a promise to yourself that I'll start exercising from tomorrow. Is there someone else? Will you call this promise as an agreement?
No,
You
ma'am.
promise to yourself that I'll start exercising from tomorrow. There is no consideration. You've made a promise to your own self. This is not resulting into an agreement. So a person cannot enter into a contract with himself. So the first and foremost essential element is that there has to be two parties. If you have a car, say you have a BMW and you want to sell this BMW and you're making this offer to sell to yourself. You say, I'll sell my BMW to myself for rupees 5 crores or 1 crore, whatsoever it is. Can you do that? That is not practically possible. So for a valid contract, it is always important that there have to be two parties. Two parties shall be present in a contract. A contract will come into existence, or we will call a contract a valid contract only when there are two parties. If there's only one person, he cannot enter into any contract or agreement with his own self. So the first essential element is that there have to be two parties. And there's also a case law supporting this. The name of the case law is State of Gujarat versus Ramanlal S and Company. What happened here was Ramanlal S and Company was a partnership firm. This partnership firm was dissolved, and at the time of dissolution, the assets were given or distributed amongst the partners. Now the sales tax officer, they wanted to tax this transaction, stating that the firm has sold their assets to partners. However, later on, it was decided in this case that firm is not different from its partners. The assets of a partnership firm, they belong to the partners. So you cannot say that there are two parties present here, and as a result of which the tax liability cannot be imposed. So this was the gist of the case of State of Gujarat versus Ramanlal S and Company. Now moving on to the second important essential element, and that is there has to be an intention to create legal relationship. Now, if any social or domestic agreement is being made, that type of agreement will not be, there will be no intention of creating any legal relationship over there. Now, say for example, a husband tells his wife that he'll get her a diamond ring. Now here, but later on he fails to do that. Here, there's no intention of creating a legal relationship. He promised to get a diamond ring for his wife, but he did not do it, or he did not keep his promise. So here, there's no intention of creating a legal relationship in this type of agreement. So in such a situation, there'll be no contract which comes into existence. The wife, she cannot sue her husband because he did not get the diamond ring he promised. So for a contract to be called a valid contract, there has to be an intention to create legal relationship. Now here, there's a very famous case law which supports this particular essential element, and that is Balfour versus Balfour. Can someone tell me what was the case of Balfour versus Balfour? This is a case between a husband and a wife. Can someone tell me what happened here in this case? What happened in Balfour versus Balfour? I've asked a question and I expect an answer for the question.
Ma'am, Balfour is working in abroad. He promised his wife to pay monthly for her expense, but he didn't do so. So since he didn't give money to his wife filed a case against Balfour.
Correct. So Mr. Balfour, he promised to send certain amount as maintenance for his wife every month, but he failed to honor his promise, as a result of which Mrs. Balfour, she files a case against him. However, the courts, they decide here that this is a social and domestic kind of agreement wherein there was no intention to create legal relationship, and the decision was given in favor of Mr. Balfour. So for a contract to be called as a valid contract, there has to be an intention to create legal relationship between parties. Moving on to the next essential element, and that is there has to be certainty of meaning. There shouldn't be any vague terms in the contract. Whenever any contract is being made, the terms of the contract should be certain, definite, and there shouldn't be any vague terms used in the contract. What does it basically mean? Now say if I tell you that we are coming up with a course and the fees of the course is rupees 5,000, but I do not give any details of the course at all. Am I being very certain about what is the course? I'm not being certain. I'm not giving you any details about the course. I've just given you that yes, we are coming up with a course and the price of the course is 5,000 rupees. But apart from this, I am not being specific about what the course is, what are the things you will get in the course, and no other information is being given. So there's no certainty here. So for a contract also to be a valid contract, there has to be a certainty of meaning. Certainty of meaning basically means that all the terms which are used in the contract, they should be certain, definite, and there should not be any vague terms used in the contract. Basically, you look at the contract and you should be able to identify what the contract says. If you're not able to identify what the contract says, then there's no certainty in the contract. So it is very important that the contract should be certain. It should contain terms which are specific and definite. Apart from this, the other important thing is it should be possible to perform. Possibility of performance is other general essential element. So possibility of performance means what? The contract which is being entered into should be possible to perform. Now, if I tell you that I know magic and I can bring a dead person alive, is it possible? Even if I am a very well-known magician, well-trained magician, can I put life into a dead person? Is it possible?
No, ma'am.
Definitely not. And if I do all of this, there's no possibility of performance. If I'm entering into a contract wherein I say that I can talk to spirits and I can connect you to spirits, all of this is not practically possible. So whenever a contract is being entered into, it is very important that it should be possible to perform. There has to be a possibility of performance for a contract to be a valid contract. And apart from this, in certain situations, there are some other formalities which are to be complied with. Formalities like what? Now, say if a contract of insurance is being entered into, it has to be in writing. There cannot be an oral contract of insurance anytime. So in certain situations, it is mandatory that the contract has to be in writing. In certain situations, say property related contracts, it is mandatory that there has to be registration which has to be done. So in certain situations, certain other formalities also have to be fulfilled whenever a contract is being entered into. So these are certain general essential elements which shall be present in every contract. So there have to be two parties, intention to create legal relationship, certainty of meaning, possibility of performance, and in some situations, some other formalities which are required to be fulfilled as a part of contract shall also be fulfilled. Is this clear? Are you all clear with the general essential elements? We'll now move on to section 10. So we'll have a look at the text of section 10, break it down into parts and understand it. Are you all clear with the general essential elements?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So let's now talk of the essential elements as per section 10. So as I've already told you that section 10 is a proper definition which is being given, or rather it is a proper statement which is being given. However, we divide it into pointers and we understand it in pointers. But we will read the statement and one by one we'll extract all the essential elements from this place. So section 10 says all agreements are contracts. So here we get the first essential element, and that is agreement. So for a contract to come into existence, there has to be an agreement. If there's no agreement, there'll be no contract coming into existence. And this agreement should definitely be a lawful agreement, a proper agreement as defined under section 2 clause E of the Indian Contract Act 1872. So the first and foremost essential element is that there has to be an agreement, and this agreement, when legally enforceable, will become a contract. So all agreements are contract if they are made by the free consent. Now, what does free consent mean? Free consent basically means agreeing upon the same thing in same sense. Agreeing upon the same thing in the same sense. Now, what does this mean? Say, for example, I tell you that I want to sell my car to you for rupees 5 lakhs. Now, I have two cars. One is a Tata Nano and the other is Honda City. Now you think that I want to sell my Honda City to you for 5 lakh rupees. However, the car in my mind is Tata Nano. So in this situation, there's no meeting of minds. Both parties here are thinking about two different things. So there's no agreeing upon same thing in the same sense, which is happening here in this situation. Now, so for a contract to be a valid contract, there has to be free consent. Free consent basically means when a person happily agrees to enter into a contract. It should not be a situation wherein someone has been threatened to enter into any contract or agreement. Now, say for example, Mr. Rajesh, he has a store. He has a he's a shopkeeper and he has a store in his name. Now, a con man, he enters into the shop, puts Rajesh on gunpoint and forcefully makes Rajesh sign the store papers and sell the store to this con man. So in this situation, Rajesh, he did not give his consent willingly. He was pressurized. He was forced to give his consent to this particular contract or to sign on the sale deed. So in this situation, we do not say that there was free consent. Free consent is basically when someone willingly enters into a contract, there is no force on them. And there are 5 situations where the consent is said not to be free: coercion, fraud, undue influence, misrepresentation, and mistake. So these are the 5 situations where we say that contract has not been made with free consent. And we will study of all these 5 points in detail when we go to unit 3. So we have till now understood 2 essential elements as per section 10. One is agreement, the other is free consent. So all agreements are contract if they are made by free consent of the parties who are competent to contract. So for a person to enter into a contract, he should also be competent to contract. Competent to contract means what? He should be capable of entering into a contract. So who is capable of entering into a contract? You tell me, who is capable of entering into a contract? Who is
A
competent?
person of sound mind.
Person of
Sound mind.
sound mind and
Major.
major, and there's one more thing. There's one more point. Can someone tell me what's the last point?
Not otherwise disqualified.
Not otherwise disqualified by law. So 3 conditions to be complied with when we in order to identify whether a person is competent to contract or not. One is that he should be a major, that is he should not be a minor. He should be a person of sound mind, that is he should be capable of understanding and making a rational decision, understanding the terms of contract and making a decision, and he should not be disqualified by law. Not disqualified basically means he should not be a criminal, or he should not be convicted of any offense, or he should not be an alien enemy. So alien enemy is basically a person belonging to a country with which our country does not have peaceful or harmonious relations. So for a contract to be a valid contract, there has to be an agreement, there has to be free consent. Free consent of whom? Of the parties who are competent to contract, that is who are capable of entering into contract. Apart from it, there has to be a lawful consideration and a lawful object. Lawful consideration means what? Now say for example, if a person enters into a contract of gambling, or if a person enters into a contract of drug trafficking, so these are all not legal activities, these are illegal activities. So here the consideration will not be a lawful consideration. Or say someone enters into a contract to kill someone, so here the object with which the contract has been entered into is not a lawful object. But for a contract to be a valid contract, both the consideration as well as the object should be a lawful consideration, and there has to be a lawful object. And finally, all the agreements are contracts if they are made by free consent, of parties competent to contract for a lawful consideration and with a lawful object and not expressly declared to be void. So when we go to chapter 3, we are also going to understand what are the different agreements which are specifically declared to be void. So there are agreement in restraint of trade, restraint of legal proceedings, restraint of marriage, opposed to public policy. So there are certain agreements which are specifically declared that these are void agreements. So if you're entering into such type of agreements, the agreements in first place are already void, so they cannot be legal or they cannot be lawful at all. So this gives us the essential elements as per section 10. Now, in examination, if a question comes on essential elements of valid contract, you will have to write this pointer of section 10, that all agreements are contracts if they are made by the free consent of the parties who are competent to contract for a lawful consideration and with a lawful object and are not expressly declared to be void. So all you have to remember here are the highlighted words. If you remember all these highlighted words, you will be able to identify whether a contract is a valid contract or not. Now, in examination, we often see questions wherein you're given situations, different situations, and you are asked to identify whether the contract is a valid contract or not. You will be able to do that only if you remember what are the essential elements of a valid contract. So for essential elements, you not only have to remember the essential elements as per section 10, but also the general essential elements. Clear? Are you all clear with the essential elements of a valid contract?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any doubts, any questions? Any questions, anyone? No? Okay. So we've now understood what is a contract, what is an agreement, what is a promise. We've also understood what are the essential elements of a valid contract. Let's now move on and understand what are the different types of contract. So the first type of contract is valid contract. Can someone tell me what is a valid contract? What is a valid contract?
All essential of contract has been fulfilled.
All the essential elements of contract present will make a contract a valid contract. If there is a contract which is made and that contract contains all the essential elements of the valid contract, then in that situation we say that the contract is a valid contract. So a valid contract is an agreement which is basically legally binding and which is enforceable, and it must qualify all the essential elements of a valid contract. It should contain all the essential elements of a valid contract. So that is very simple. So if all the essential elements are present, we say that the contract is a valid contract. Let's now move on to the second type of contract, and that is a void contract. What is a void contract? So void contract is basically a contract which is not enforceable by law or which ceases to be enforceable by law. Let's take an example and understand what a void contract is. Now say there's a magician PC Sarkar, and he entered into a contract with an event organizer that he will go to the event and perform at the event on 16th of October. And for the event, Mr. PC Sarkar, he's charging rupees 3 lakhs. Is this a proper contract? Is this a valid contract? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is a valid contract. So there's a proper consideration, there's a proper agreement, it is also legally enforceable. But on 14th of October, Mr. PC Sarkar, he meets accident and he injures himself, and he's severely injured. He is in a critical condition. He cannot come for the show on 16th of October. So now in this situation, the contract was initially a valid contract. However, something happened, some event happened on 14th of October, which made the possibility of performance impossible. When the contract was made, initially it was a valid contract. However, something happened which made the performance impossible, as a result of which the contract has now become a void contract. There's no possibility of performance now on 16th of October. So the contract has now ceased to be enforceable because of happening of an event. However, there can be another example or another situation of a void contract as well. Now, say for example, a person say Mr. Raj, he enters into a contract with Rajiv to supply some drugs to Rajiv. These are banned drugs to Rajiv for rupees 5 lakhs. Now, here in this situation, you tell me, is this a valid contract?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Not a valid contract because the object and the consideration here is not legal, it is not lawful. So we will call this contract also as a void contract. So when we talk of void contract, a void contract is a contract which ceases to be enforceable. However, there can be two situations here. A void contract can either be void from the very beginning, or it may become void subsequently. That is, when it was initially made, it was valid, but later on it becomes void due to happening of an event. However, when the contract is void from the very beginning, we call it void ab initio. That is void from the very beginning, void from inception. Examples could be dealing in drug, gambling, or any kind of child trafficking, or doing any illegal activity. So these are contracts which are void from the very beginning. So they are void ab initio. However, the example of magician which we had taken, there the contract was valid initially. It was a valid contract. However, on 14th of October, due to the accident, the contract became void. The contract was valid. However, some event happened which made the contract impossible and it became void. So when we talk of void contracts, they may either be void from the very beginning or they may become void subsequently due to happening of an event. Say, for example, there was a contract which was made between a shirt manufacturer and his customer. So the shirt manufacturer, he had to manufacture 5,000 pieces of shirt and deliver them to his customer by a specific date. However, a day before the delivery, there was a fire in his factory, as a result of which all his materials were destroyed. Now in the situation, the delivery is not possible. So the contract has now become impossible to perform, or rather the performance is not possible. So it has now become a void contract. So when we talk of void contract, it is not always necessary that the contract has to be void ab initio. A contract may be valid initially but may become void subsequently as well. Is this clear? Are you all clear with what is a void contract?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Moving on to the next type of contract, and that is a voidable contract. So if you just have a look at the meaning of void contract, 2 clause J defines a void contract. It says a contract which ceases to be enforceable by law becomes void when it ceases to be enforceable. So basically, it is not possible to perform. It is no longer enforceable. Moving on to the other type, and that is a voidable contract. Now say there are two friends, Mr. Sunil and Mr. Ravi. Mr. Ravi forcefully makes Sunil sell his shop to Ravi for rupees 2 crore. So what has happened here? Mr. Ravi, he has forced Mr. Sunil to sell his shop to Ravi for rupees 2 crores. So here Mr. Sunil's consent is not free. So where a contract is made where the consent of one of the parties is not free, in such a situation, the contract is voidable at the option of the aggrieved party, that is at the option of the party whose consent was not free. So here Mr. Sunil now has a right to avoid the contract. Mr. Sunil, if he wants to avoid the contract, he can do so. Mr. Sunil can avoid the contract. Say Mr. Sunil does not want to sell his shop. So Mr. Sunil, he can go to the court and state the fact that he was forced to sell his shop to Ravi and he does not want to continue with the contract. However, it is not necessary that the aggrieved party will always avoid the contract. It may so happen that, say Sunil, he comes to know from sources that the shop was anyways going to be demolished due to the metro construction, and he would get only 1 crore from the government authorities. So here Sunil thinks that it is good that Ravi is paying me 2 crores for the same shop for which the government would have paid me 1 crore later on. So it is better that I do not avoid the contract and continue with the contract. So when we are talking of voidable contracts, it is not necessary that the voidable contracts will always be avoided by the parties. If the aggrieved party, they think that the contract is beneficial for them or it is benefiting them in some manner, they would decide to continue with the contract as well. So it is not always necessary that the aggrieved party will avoid the contract, but yes, they have an option to avoid the contract. When we talk about voidable contract, it is not necessary that the aggrieved party will always avoid the contract. However, they have an option to avoid the contract. So voidable contracts are those wherein one party, who is the aggrieved party, they have the right to avoid the contract, an option to avoid the contract. But here Mr. Ravi, who forced Sunil to enter into the contract, does not have any right to avoid the contract. If Ravi later on wants to avoid the contract, he cannot do so. The person who has the right to avoid the contract here is only and only Mr. Sunil and not Mr. Ravi. So what is a voidable contract? A voidable contract is one where one of the parties, they have an option to avoid the contract. However, the other parties do not have the option to avoid the contract. So till the time the voidable contract is avoided, it is a valid contract only. It will remain valid. Until the contract is avoided, it will remain valid and enforceable. And who has the option to avoid here? It is the aggrieved party who have the option to avoid. And it is the aggrieved party who will decide whether they want to cancel the contract or whether they want to continue the contract. So in our example, Sunil, he gets to know later on that because of metro construction, the shop was any which way is going to be demolished and he would get only 1 crore from the government. So Sunil, he decides to continue with the contract because this contract was more beneficial. Though he forcefully entered into this contract, but it was more beneficial for him. So it is completely the aggrieved party's discretion of what they want to do. They can either cancel the contract, that is avoid the contract, or they can continue with the contract if the contract is beneficial. Clear? Is this clear? Are you all clear with what is a voidable contract?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any doubts, any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So there are a few differences between a void contract and voidable contract. So void contract is not enforceable at all. However, a voidable contract is enforceable at the option of the aggrieved party. Void contract may become void because of happening of an event. However, voidable contract become voidable because the consent of the parties is not free. In case of void contract, the parties do not have any rights. However, the aggrieved party has got certain rights in case of a voidable contract. Void contract is not performed, cannot be performed at all. However, voidable contract, it is valid unless and until the aggrieved party exercises its option to avoid the contract or to revoke the contract. So these are some of the differences between void contract and voidable contract. So it is section 2J and not section 2G. There's some printing mistake here. Also about the notes, you will get the notes, access to the notes by the end of the day. Moving on to the other type of contract, and that is illegal contract. Now, illegal contracts are contracts which are prohibited by law. What does prohibited by law mean? What are,
Restricted by law.
sorry?
Restricted by law.
Restricted by law is something which is not allowed by law, something which the law does not permit. So contracts which are, or agreements which are prohibited by law, they are called as illegal agreements, which cannot be performed at all. Law itself states that if you do this thing, it is against law, it is illegal. So something which breaks law, something which is against law, which is against public policy, those type of contracts are illegal contracts, and illegal contracts are always void ab initio, that is void from the very beginning. From the very beginning, the illegal contract will always be void. They will not have any validity at all. So illegal contracts are contracts which are prohibited by law, and they are always void, never valid. So contract to kill someone, or say smuggling contracts, all of these, growing something which is being banned by the government, all of these contracts are they fall under the category of illegal contract. Apart from this, the other type of contract is an unenforceable contract. Now, unenforceable contract is basically a contract with some technical defect. There's some technical defect in the contract. Now, what does technical defect basically mean? Now, as we've understood under under general essential elements, that some other formalities have to be complied in with certain situations. So say the contract has to be in writing. A contract of insurance has to be in writing, and if you do not have it in writing, then you cannot say that I have an insurance policy in my name. So in certain situations, there are certain technical defects in the contract which make them unenforceable. Say something which has to be in writing is not there in writing, something which had to be registered has not been registered yet. So there's some technical defect which makes the contract unenforceable. So here you can have a look at the differences between void contract and illegal contract. When we talk of void contract, it is not forbidden by law. However, illegal contracts, they are forbidden by law. Void contracts, they are not forbidden by law. However, illegal contracts, they are forbidden by law. Void contracts are not illegal, but illegal contracts are always void. Like we've understood that all contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contracts. Similarly here, void contracts are not necessarily illegal. If you remember the example which we had taken of the magician, it was a valid contract, it was not illegal. However, something happened because of which the contract became void. However, illegal contracts, they are always void, they are void ab initio. There's no punishment in case of void contracts. However, if a person is doing something which is illegal, there is definitely a punishment for it. Collateral agreements are basically some agreements which form part of the contract, or some agreements which are attached to the contract, which are a part of the contract. So collateral agreements, they are enforceable in case of void contract. However, if a contract is an illegal contract, the collateral agreements are also not enforceable. So these are some of the differences between void contract and illegal contract. So now these were the type of contract on the basis of validity. Apart from it, there are some other types of contracts as well. The first one is express contract. Now, can someone tell me what is an express contract?
Implied by words.
No, express contract. What is an express contract? Express contract is basically a contract wherein the terms of the contract are stated either orally or in writing. See, it is not necessary that the contract always has to be in writing. A contract may either be oral or written. However, when we talk of express contracts are those contracts wherein the terms of the contract, they are properly expressed or they are clearly expressed, either orally or in writing. Now, talking of implied contract, these are contracts which come into existence by implication. Implication means they are implied either by act of the parties or the conduct of the parties to the contract or by law. Conduct of parties means what? Now, say for example, you board a bus, you board a city bus. Now, when you're boarding a city bus, it implies that you want to obtain the service of that city bus. Now, when the conductor comes to you, you have to take the ticket. Can you travel in a bus without a ticket? Now, do not tell me, yes, there are ways of traveling without a ticket or a pass. People do it, but is it illegal? Is it legal? You boarding a bus implies that you want to take that bus service, and when the conductor comes to you, you will have to pay him for the ticket. You will have to purchase the ticket from the conductor. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you will definitely have to do it. So there's an implied action here. There's an implied contract which is coming into existence over here by the conduct of the parties. Now there's another type of contract which is a subset of implied contract, that is a tacit contract. The word tacit basically means silent. So again, this is a contract which is implied by the conduct of the parties. Implied contract again by the conduct of the parties, and it has one more type, that is tacit contract. Tacit contract is not different from an implied contract. It is similar to an implied contract only. It's just that it is an implication done by the conduct of the parties or the act of the parties. So an example of tacit contract could be withdrawing cash from the ATM. Implied and tacit both are same, they are not different. It's just that tacit is a subset of implied contract. Now, apart from it, another type of contract is a quasi contract. Now, this is a contract which is not actually a contract. The essential elements of a contract are not present here. There's no offer, there's no acceptance, there's nothing. But still we call it as a contract because law has imposed an obligation here. Quasi contract comes into existence because law has imposed an obligation. Now, what does this mean? Law imposing an obligation. What does this mean? Now, say for example, you are in a class and you find someone's wallet in the class. There's a wallet which you find on the ground. Now, what will you do with the wallet? Will you take the money from the wallet and then go put the wallet in the lost and found box? The wallet has 5,000 rupees in it. What will you do? Take 2,000 from it and then keep the wallet in the lost and found box, or
We have to return to the true owner.
you'll have to find the true owner and you'll have to return it to the true owner. This would have happened with you in schools and colleges, that you find someone's pen and then you lift the pen in your hand and then say, whose property is this? To whom does this pen belong? Ye kiska hai? All of that you did in school as well. So quasi contracts are also on similar lines. They are basically, if you find something which does not belong to you, it is your responsibility to make sure that you find the true owner and restore the goods back to the true owner. So here, there's no contract between you and the true owner of the wallet or between you and the true owner of the pen. However, law has imposed an obligation on you that you have to find the true owner and return the wallet to the true owner. So quasi contracts are basically contracts where the essential elements of contracts are not present. However, it is a contract which has come into existence because law has imposed an obligation on the parties to the contract. Is this clear? Have you all understood what a quasi contract is? Quasi contracts are basically based on principle to stop unjust enrichment. Unjust enrichment basically means that no one should become rich on someone else's loss. You should not gain from someone else's loss. So quasi contracts are based on that principle. It is not a contract which is actually being made, but which comes into existence because law has imposed an obligation. Is it clear? Have you all
Yes,
understood
ma'am.
what quasi contracts are? Quasi
Yes, ma'am.
very important from examination point of view as well. We'll learn about quasi contracts in much more detail when we go to unit 6. However, there are instances where questions based on quasi contracts are asked in examination as well. So it is important that you understand what it means. Now moving on to the next type, it is e-contract. So e-contract is nothing but an electronic contract, a contract which is entered into using electronic means. So that type of a contract is an e-contract. Now, apart from this, the other classification of contract is based on performance. Now, based on performance, contracts are classified into two types: executed and executory. So contract can either be an executed contract or an executory contract. Now, the name itself gives us the meaning of what it is. Executed basically means where the parties to the contract, they have performed their respective obligations. So say for example, if Mr. A promises to sell 1 kg of rice to Mr. B for rupees 100, and both the parties, that is Mr. A and Mr. B, both of them have performed their respective obligation. That is, Mr. A has delivered 1 kg of rice and Mr. B has also made the payment of 100 rupees. So is there something pending on any of the parties? No, there's nothing pending on the part of any of the parties. Both the parties have performed their respective obligations. So those type of contracts are called as executed contracts, wherein parties to the contract, they have performed their respective obligations. However, when we talk of executory, so the name itself suggests that there's something which is pending. Executory contracts are those contracts wherein there is something wherein the performance is pending or the performance is due. Now, this performance can be due one-sided, that is from one party's side, or this performance can be due from both the parties' end. So it can either be unilateral or bilateral. Now continuing with the same example of A and B. Now say A has supplied 1 kg of rice, but B has not made the payment of rupees 100 yet. So the obligation of Mr. B is still pending. So in such a situation, we will call that contract as an unilateral contract. Or say it is a case wherein both A and B, they have to perform their respective obligation. A also did not supply the rice and B also has not made the payment yet. So in that situation, it is a bilateral contract wherein the performance of obligation is pending from both the ends. Both the parties have not yet performed their part of the contract or their obligation. Is this clear? Are you all clear? So with this, we have understood all the types of contracts. Are you all clear with all the types of contracts?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, no? Any questions? Any questions, anyone?
No, ma'am.
Have you all understood it?
Yes, ma'am.
See, there's this principle in the contract: mere silence does not amount to acceptance. If you all keep quiet like this, I'll have to assume your silence to be acceptance. So if you do not want that to happen, please do respond. Either unmute yourselves and respond, or type your answers, type your messages in the chat box. I should also be aware of how much you have actually understood, right? So mere silence does not amount to acceptance, but I'll have to assume it to be acceptance here if you all keep quiet like this. I see only 2-3 people answering to my questions and the remaining ones are not answering. So I request all of you all to answer the questions. Only then this revision will be helpful for all of you. So I believe you all will be more participative now on. So we have completed with the first part of the topic, that was with respect to contracts. We have understood what is a contract, what are the essential elements of contract, and what are the different types of contract. Any doubts so far? Have you all understood everything which we have covered so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. See, in spite of saying so much, I get answers only from 1 or 2 people. Okay, moving on to the next part, and that is the basis of a contract, which is an offer. What is an offer? So the term offer is defined in section 2 clause A of the Indian Contract Act 1872, and it says that when a person signifies his assent to some other person. Now, before we understand the definition, let me take an example. Now, say there's this person, Mr. Salman Khan. Now, Salman Khan, he was talking to a co-star, to one of his female co-stars. He was talking to one of his female co-star, and he tells his female co-star that I want to get married by the end of 2022. So this is what Mr. Salman Khan says. So what did he do here? He has expressed his willingness to get married by the end of 2022. Now, is it necessary for this female co-star to respond here? Does she have to say yes, no, okay, fine? Does Salman Khan want her consent here? He has only expressed his willingness. So, is her response mandatory over here?
No, ma'am.
Not required. But let's change Mr. Salman's statement. Now, Salman states to his female co-star, he expresses his willingness to get married, and then he adds one more question: will you marry me? What he says is, I want to get married by the end of 2022. Will you marry me? So he's asked a question here. He's asked his female co-star a question here. That is, will you marry me? So here consent is required, or rather he wants the willingness of that other person also. The other person to whom the proposal is being made, that person will have to respond.
Co-star should respond to the Salman Khan questions.
She'll have to respond here. Yes. So what has happened in the first situation and what has happened in the second situation? In the first situation, there was only an expression of willingness. However, in the second situation, there was an expression of willingness with an intention to obtain consent of the other party. In which situation an offer will come into place? First situation or the second situation?
Second situation.
Second situation. In the first situation, there's no offer which is coming into existence. However, in the second situation, there's an offer which is coming into existence. And what makes an offer? Expression of willingness with an intention to obtain the consent of the other party makes an offer. So when a person signifies his willingness to do something or not to do something to some other person with an intention to obtain the assent of the other party to do or for not doing that particular thing, we say that a proposal is made, or we say that an offer is made. So for offer, we have one equation here, and that is expression of willingness plus intention to obtain consent or intention to obtain the assent of the other party. So let's have a look at the definition of offer now. So when one person signifies to another his willingness to do or to abstain from doing. So when an offer is made, it can be either to do something or not to do something. Abstain from doing means not to do something. So when a person is signifying his willingness to do or abstain from doing anything with a view to obtaining the assent of the other person to such act or abstinence, he is said to make a proposal. So two essential elements of offer, and that is signifying willingness, expressing willingness with an intention to obtain the assent of that other party, assent of that other person. So that makes an offer. Are you all clear with what is an offer? Breaking down the definition of offer, when a person is signifying his willingness to the other person to do something or not to do something with an intention to obtain the assent of that other person, we say that an offer is made, or we say that a proposal is made. So whenever reading any definition, whenever studying any definition, break it into parts and read it. It will become very easy for you. So two essential elements in an offer: expression of willingness with an intention to obtain consent. And this expression of willingness can either be to do something or not to do something. Are you all clear with definition of offer?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes. Now, the person who makes an offer is called as an offerer, and the person to whom the offer is made is called as an offeree. The person making an offer is called as offerer or a proposer, and the person to whom the offer is made is called as an offeree. Clear? Now, let's talk of the different types of offer. So the first type of offer is a general offer. General offer is an offer which is made to public at large, which means anyone can come and accept the offer. Now, you would have seen advertisements in television. I don't remember the name of the water purifier exactly. There was an advertisement running a few years ago. I don't remember the name of water purifier. It said that we are the best ones available, and if you find something which is better than ours, you can claim some some amount of say 1 crore or 5 crore. There was something. So there was a public announcement which was made that ours is the best water purifier, and if you find something which is better than this, we are ready to pay this amount as reward. So this type of offer, it is not made to a specific person, it is made to public at large. Anyone from the public can come and accept the offer which has been made. So that type of an offer is called as a general offer. Now the case law here for general offer is Carlyle versus Carbolic Smoke Ball Company. So there was this Carbolic Smoke Ball Company which made some smoke ball, and they claim that anyone who uses these smoke balls as per our instructions, that person will not contract an influenza. So there was some influenza which was going around during that time. So the company states that anyone who uses the smoke balls as per the instructions which we have given will not contract this influenza. And if in spite of using our smoke ball, if you contract the influenza, we will pay some amount, we will pay some reward to a person who contracts influenza in spite of using our smoke balls as per our instructions. Now there was a lady, Mrs. Carlyle. She uses the smoke ball and according to the instructions, and in spite of using the smoke ball according to the instructions, she contracts with this flu. Now she goes to the company and she claims the reward. She claims the compensation which was announced by the company. However, the company, that is Carbolic Smokeball Company, they refused to pay the amount to Mrs. Carlyle, as a result of which Mrs. Carlyle, she goes to the court. Now, in the courts decide that the offer which was made by the company was made to public at large, and anyone can accept this offer. And Mrs. Carlyle here has accepted the offer by consuming the smoke ball and using it as per the company's instruction. And since Mrs. Carlyle, she has used the smoke ball and still contracted influenza, it is the company's responsibility to make the payment to Mrs. Carlyle. So that's what happened in this case law, Carlyle versus Carbolic Smokeball Company. It basically says that whenever a general offer is made, it is made to public at large, it is open to public at large, anyone can come forward and accept the offer. Moving on to the other type of offer. The other type of offer is a specific offer or a special offer. So the name itself suggests specific offer or a special offer. It is made to a specific person. When the offer is made to a specific person, it is referred to as a specific offer or a special offer. Only the person to whom the offer is made can accept the offer. Now, say if I make an offer to you that I will teach the entire course to you for free, and I have made this offer specifically to a person named Mr. Karthik. So only Mr. Karthik has got this right to accept my offer, and no one else can accept this offer. Specific offer is an offer made to a specific person, and only the person to whom the offer is made has the right to accept the offer. No one else can accept the offer in that person's place. The other type of offer is a cross offer. Now, what is a cross offer? Let's understand this with help of an example. Say there's a person, Mr. Abhi. Mr. Abhi has a BMW, and Mr. Abhi wants to sell his BMW. Abhi writes a letter to his friend Karan, and in this letter, Abhi makes an offer to sell his BMW to Karan for ₹1 crore. Whereas Karan also wants to purchase BMW, and he writes a letter to Abhi that I want to purchase your BMW for ₹1 crore. However, Abhi and Karan, both of them do not know that the other person has made such an offer to them. So cross offer is nothing but exchange of identical offers. Cross offer is exchange of identical offers in ignorance to each other's offers. In ignorance to each other's offer basically means Abhi is unaware of Karan's offer, and Karan is also unaware of an offer which is made by Abhi. Both the letters are in transit. Both of them have written same letters to each other. However, both of them are ignorant to that fact. They are not aware of this fact that the other person has made such kind of an offer. So cross offer is exchange of identical offer in ignorance to each other's offer. And then the other type of offer is a counter offer. Counter offer is basically putting forth a condition to the offer. Conditional acceptance, giving a conditional acceptance to some offer, or putting a condition to some offer. That makes a counter offer. Can someone give me an example of counter offer?
Ma'am, in the above example, when Abhi offered Karan the BMW car for 1 crore, and the Karan says, I will buy your BMW car for 80 lakhs, then it is the counter offer.
Correct. So here there's a condition which has been put. Abhi says that I'll sell my BMW for 1 crore. However, Karan says, I will buy your BMW, but for 80 lakhs. So here what has happened, a condition has been put for the original offer. And when a condition is put for the original offer lapses. Now later on, Karan cannot say Abhi that, okay, fine, I'll purchase your BMW for 1 crore rupees. Since As soon as Karan puts forth a condition to the original offer lapses and Karan cannot accept the original offer later on. And the next type of offer is a standing offer, open offer, or a continuing offer. So this is again an offer made to public at large. However, it is for a certain time span. It is open for acceptance for certain time span. Now say these big billion days of Flipkart, Amazon sale, these go on for a specific time span. So if you're purchasing any products during that time span, you will be eligible to get them at a discounted price. However, if you purchase them later on, you will not be eligible for the discounted price. So a standing offer or an open offer or a continuing offer is an offer which is open to public at large, however, for a certain specified time period. Is this clear? Are you all clear with all the types of offer?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts, any questions? Now, in examination, they also sometimes give situations and ask you about what type of offer it is. They give you certain small scenarios and they ask you what type of offer it is. So are you all clear with all the types of offer?
Yes, ma'am.
In spite of saying so much, I see only those one or two people responding to me, and the other people are not responding at all. Okay, moving on to the essential elements of a valid offer. So like we have seen what are the essential elements of valid contract. Similarly, there are certain essential elements of a valid offer as well. So for an offer to be a valid offer, there has to be certain essential elements which have to be complied with. Now, the first essential element is that an offer should be capable of creating legal relations. Now, say for example, I am organizing my birthday party and I give you an invitation to come for my birthday party. But you do not turn up for my birthday party. So I made an offer. I invited you for my birthday party, but you did not turn up because you were busy preparing for your examinations and you did not want to waste your time attending a birthday party. So here, will you call this type of offer a valid offer? The offer which I made, was it a valid offer? Is there any capability of this offer to create a legal relation? No, it is a normal offer. It is a social invitation which I had given you. And this social invitation, even if you have accepted my invitation saying, yes, ma'am, we'll be there, we'll definitely come for your birthday party, but you do not turn up. I cannot do anything here. There's no capability of this offer to create any legal relationship. So if you remember, the essential element in contract was an intention to create legal relationship. So even when an offer is being made, the offer will be said to be a valid offer when it is capable of creating legal relation. And offer also, when it is being made, it should be capable of creating legal relation. It should be capable of giving rise to legal consequences. If an offer is not giving rise to any legal consequences and it is not capable of creating legal relations, then it is not a valid offer. It is only a mere social or a domestic invitation. And even if a social or domestic invitation is accepted, it will not give rise to a valid offer. So for an offer to be a valid offer, it has to be capable of creating legal relations. The second term is again about certainty. Like a contract has to be certain, similarly, the terms of the offer should also be certain, definite, and not vague. The words used in the offer, they should be clear, they should be very clear, very certain, and there should not be any vague terms used in the offer. And one very essential element of a valid offer is that it should be communicated to the offeree. Who is an offeree? Who is an offeree?
To whom the offer is made.
The person to whom the offer is made. So whenever an offer is made, it has to be communicated to the offeree. Communication of offer is very important. If the offer is not communicated, how will the offeree accept the offer? Now here there comes a case law of Lalman Shukla versus Gauri Dutt. So Mr. Gauri Dutt loses his nephew, and Mr. Lalman, who was a servant at Mr. Gauri Dutt's place. Now Lalman, he goes out in search of Gauri Dutt's nephew, and after Lalman goes out in search of Gauri Dutt's nephew, Gauri Dutt, he gives an advertisement in the newspaper that whoever finds my nephew, I'll give that person a reward. So he announces a reward. Lalman, he does not know anything about this announcement which is being made by Gauri Dutt. He's still on his search for Gauri Dutt's nephew, and he also finds Gauri Dutt's nephew, and he brings that kid back to Gauri Dutt and goes back to his home. Now the other day, Lalman finds out that this kind of announcement was made by his master Gauri Dutt, and he goes to Gauri Dutt and says that where's my reward? I found your nephew, so now I'm eligible to the reward which you announced. However, Lalman here acted in ignorance to the offer. It was a general offer, could have been accepted by anyone. But Lalman was not aware of the offer at all. Lalman acted in ignorance to the offer. So when a person is acting in ignorance to the offer, you cannot say that he has accepted the offer. So in this situation, Lalman, he goes to the court, and the courts, they give their decision in favor of Gauri Dutt, stating that Lalman acted in ignorance to the offer, so he's not eligible to the reward which was announced. Is it clear? Are you all clear with Lalman Shukla versus Gauri Dutt? So if someone is acting in ignorance to the offer, if offer is not communicated to a person, that person cannot accept the offer as well. So communication of offer to the offeree is very important. So offer has to be communicated to the offeree. The other essential element of the offer is that it must be made with an intention of obtaining the assent. So this is directly from the definition. If a person is only expressing willingness, it will not bring an offer into existence. However, there has to be an intention of obtaining consent of the other party, intention of obtaining assent of the other party. The other element is that offer may be conditional. Conditional meaning that there could be some conditions imposed as to the payment has to be in certain form, or the acceptance should be communicated by, say, a telephone call or a WhatsApp message. So there may be some conditions put in the offer. However, an offer should not contain any term the non-compliance of which would amount to acceptance. Now, say for example, I make an offer to you and I tell you that if you do not give your acceptance within 1 week, if you do not communicate to me within 1 week, I will assume the offer to be accepted. Now, do you think this is fair on my part to assume the offer to be accepted without any communication from your side?
No.
Is it fair on my part to assume acceptance?
No, ma'am, it is not.
It is not fair. So I cannot put any condition in the offer stating that if you do not communicate your acceptance within so and so time, I'll assume the offer to be accepted. So the offer should not contain any term where the non-compliance would amount to acceptance of the offer. I did not understand your question. Can you be a little more clear? In case of condition, whenever a condition is put for the original offer lapses. Offer may be conditional, basically means that, say, I have made an offer to you and I state that the payment you have to make only through any banking channel. I accept only, say, UPI payment. So those type of conditions can be a part of offer. There cannot be any condition wherein I say that if you do not accept within a week, then I'll assume it to be accepted. So there should be no term in the offer where the non-compliance would amount to acceptance. An offer may either be specific offer or a general offer. An offer may either be express offer or implied offer. Just like express contract and implied contract, offer can also be express or implied. However, an offer is different from communication of information, invitation to offer, advertisement, and other things. So when we talk of an invitation to offer, so when a company issues prospectus to the public, it is inviting people to come forward and to subscribe to its securities. So here an invitation to offer is being made by the company to the public. Company is not making an offer, rather it is inviting offers from people. So when we talk of invitation to offer, an invitation to offer is not an offer. Rather, it is inducing people to come forward and make an offer. Or say, you might have seen there are, when you go to shopping malls, there are different things on display. Now, what are these things on display meant for? They are basically inviting people to come forward, step into the store and shop at the store. So an invitation to offer is basically inducing offers from people, inviting people to come forward and make an offer. Invitation to offer is not an offer. It is basically inviting people to come forward and make an offer. So an invitation to offer is only an attempt to induce offers, and it precedes a definite offer. Precedes a definite offer basically means that it comes before a definite offer is made. So there are different examples: magazine displaying offer, prospectus, display of goods in shop window. So when we talk of an offer, the outcome of offer could either be acceptance or rejection. There can be two answers, yes or no. But when we are talking of an invitation to offer, in case of an invitation to offer, the outcome is an offer. It is not acceptance or rejection, but rather it is an offer which is being made. When an offer is made, the outcome can either be acceptance or rejection. However, when an invitation to offer is being made, the outcome of it is an offer. It is basically inviting people to come forward and make an offer. So let's have a look at the differences between offer and invitation to offer. So as we've understood, offer is expression of willingness with intention to obtain assent. However, in invitation to offer, there's no expression of willingness. However, it is an information to make people come forward and make an offer. Offer is binding to the offerer. However, in case of invitation to offer, there's no binding factor at all. Offer results into a contract. However, invitation to offer results into an offer. It may lead to an offer. Offer cannot precede invitation to offer. It is always an invitation to offer, then an offer. Offer cannot come before an invitation to offer. So are you all clear with offer and invitation to offer?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts in what is offer and what is an invitation to offer?
No, ma'am.
No? Clear? So there's a case law, Harvey versus Spacey. Now what happened here? Let's understand. So there was a company which was into manufacturing of pen. A letter was written by the plaintiffs to the company wherein they asked two questions. The first question was, will you sell us your bumper haul pen? And the second question was, what is the lowest price of the pen? So two questions were asked in the letter. Will you sell the pen? The second was the lowest price at which the pen will be sold. Now, when this company replies to the letter, responds to the letter, they only state what is the lowest price. However, they do not respond to this first question of will they sell the pen. So in this situation, there's only communication of information which has been done. There's no binding acceptance which has happened. The company, they have reserved their right to accept the offer by not responding to the first question of will you sell the bumper haul pen to us. They have only responded with what is the lowest price. Now, here they are only communicating some information. So mere communication of some information will not amount to an offer. Just because, say for example, you inquire with us that what is the price of the course. We say that the price of the course is 1,999. So here we've only communicated some information to you, and communication of information does not amount to an offer. So offer is different from any information, from invitation to offer, from any prospectus. All of these are different and offer is different. So this was the case law wherein two questions were asked. However, only one was replied to, and then the plaintiff, they say that we agree to buy the pen. However, the company, they refuse to sell the pen, stating that we did not reply to your first question at all, so we are not bound to sell the pen to you. So when the case had gone to the court, the courts, they also stated that the company did not respond to the first question, wherein they reserved their right to answer the first question. They did not accept your offer at all, so they are not liable to sell the pen to you. They've only communicated the price, so that does not mean that they have accepted your offer. So mere statement of the price will not bring an implied contract into existence. You inquired them about the price, they have stated the price. Now say you go to a shop and you like something, you ask for the price. Now does that mean that you have purchased that thing?
No, ma'am.
Does not mean that. So similar thing has happened here. Two questions were asked, one question was replied to, and the company reserved the right to answer to the first question. So no implied contract had come into existence. So with this, we've now understood what is offer, what are the different types of offer, and also what are the essential elements of a valid offer. Any question, any doubts? If you all are clear, we'll move on to acceptance now.
No doubts, ma'am.
No doubts? You are all very smart. You all do not have any doubts, right? You all know everything. Okay, so let's move on to acceptance. We've already done the definition of acceptance. Can someone tell me what is acceptance?
Accepting the offer.
Accepting the offer, that's okay, but what else? If you remember, we have done the definition of acceptance. I told you the definition of promise and acceptance is one and the same. Can someone tell me what is acceptance? Acceptance of offer is okay, but are you going to write this in exam? If a question comes wherein you have to define acceptance and write the essential elements of acceptance, will you write acceptance is acceptance of offer? Is that what you will write in your examination? If you're writing that, do not expect any marks. What will you write in your exam if you're asked a question, what is acceptance? Yes? You will not answer the question? You will leave that question an option, is it? I'm not moving ahead if I am not getting the answer to this question.
The person to whom offer is made and others should accept it.
Is it necessary that the other person has to accept the offer which is being made?
It may depend on that.
May depend, right? So you cannot write this thing in your examination. So basically, when a person to whom an offer is made signifies his assent to the offer, the offer is said to be accepted, the proposal is said to be accepted, and an accepted proposal is said to be a promise. Abhi to you should have recollected the definition. Any which ways, let's have a look at the definition of acceptance once again. Simplify it again. So when the person to whom the proposal is made, that is the person to whom offer is made, he gives his assent to the offer, the proposal is said to be accepted, and the proposal, when accepted, it becomes a promise. So what is acceptance? Giving an assent to the proposal amounts to acceptance. Is this clear? So what happens when the proposal is accepted? So under offer, we have understood offerer is a person who makes the offer. He's also called as a proposer. And the person to whom the offer is made is said to be offeree. Now, offeree, he can either accept the offer or reject the offer. If the offeree accepts the offer, he will be called as an acceptor or a promisee. And in such a situation, the offerer is called as a promiser. Okay, are these terms clear? Now these terms clear.
Yes, ma'am.
We've usually seen people get confused between who's a promiser, who's a promisee, and then there's a lot of confusion. So offerer is also called as a proposer. He's also called as a promiser. Offeree, if he accepts the offer, he becomes an acceptor or the promisee. So let's now understand some of the rules regarding valid acceptance. So we've understood what are the essential elements of a valid contract. We've also understood what are the essential elements of a valid offer. So let's now understand what are the essential elements of a valid acceptance. Now let's understand this with help of an example. So there's a person, Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, he makes an offer to Mr. Rohan. And when Rahul was making the offer to Rohan, Ravi was also present there. Basically, three friends were talking, Rahul, Ravi, and Rohan. However, Rahul, he makes an offer to Rohan in Ravi's presence. Now, my question here is, who can accept the offer?
Rohan.
Who can accept the offer? Rohan? Okay. Someone says Rohan. Does every one of you say Rohan? I've got only one answer. Who can accept the offer?
Rohan.
Rohan.
Rohan. Why Rohan? Why not Ravi?
Because Rahul made the offer only to Rohan, but not Red.
Because Rahul has made offer only to Rohan. Ravi was present there, but the offer was made to Rohan. So only the person to whom the offer is made has the right to accept the offer. So this is in case of specific offer. So when the offer is a specific offer, it can be accepted only by the person to whom it is made. If it is a general offer, it can be accepted by anyone. No problem in that. But when the offer is a specific offer, it can be accepted only by the person to whom the offer is made. So in this situation, only Rohan has got the right to accept Rahul's offer and Ravi cannot accept the offer. So if it is a general offer, anyone can accept it. However, for a specific offer, it can be accepted only by the person to whom the offer is made. The first condition for valid acceptance is that it can be given only by the person to whom the offer is made. So whenever a specific proposal is made, it can be accepted only and only by the person to whom it is made, and third person, they cannot accept it. Yes, if say the third person is acting as an agent of this offeree, if they are acting on behalf of the offeree, that is a different case. However, wherever an offer is made, it can be accepted only and only by the person to whom the offer is made. However, if it is a general offer, then anyone who knows about the offer can accept it. Is the first condition clear? Acceptance can be given only and only by the person to whom the offer is made and no one else. The second condition for a valid acceptance is that it must be absolute and unqualified. Absolute and unqualified basically means that it should be unconditional. There should be no conditions attached to the acceptance. Whenever a person is giving acceptance, it should be unconditional and it should be absolute. Now, say for example, I make an offer to sell iPhone 13 Pro to you for rupees 80,000. Now you say, okay, I am ready to buy the iPhone 13 Pro, but for rupees 75,000. Is this an absolute acceptance? Is this an unconditional acceptance?
No.
It is not an unconditional acceptance. Rather, here what you've done, you've made a counter offer. So in this situation, the original offer will lapse. So whenever acceptance is being given, it has to be absolute and unconditional. There should be no conditions attached to the acceptance which is made. An acceptance should always be unconditional and absolute. Whenever a conditional acceptance is given, it will result into the original offer lapsing. A conditional acceptance amounts to a counter offer which leads to lapse of the original offer. So if any conditional acceptance is made, it will lead to the original offer lapsing. It will lead to the nullification of the original offer. Clear? Clear with the second point, second
Yes, ma'am.
essential element of valid acceptance? Yes,
Yes,
it
ma'am.
must be absolute and unconditional or unqualified. So there's this case law, Nail versus Merit, wherein M offered to sell land for 280 pounds. However, N replied to accept the offer, but he gave a check of only 80 pounds. And he promised to pay the balance 200 by monthly installment of 50 pounds each. So here in this situation, there was a clear offer that I want to sell my land for 280 pounds. If you want to purchase it, you can accept it. There was no, there was nothing mentioned about payment in installments or any other thing. So here in this situation, this acceptance which has been given by Mr. N here is not an absolute acceptance. It is not an unqualified acceptance because he is himself made the rules. Okay, fine, I give you 80 pounds now and the remaining amount I'll give you in installment of 50 pounds each. Now this was not talked about by Merit in his letter. So this kind of acceptance is not a valid acceptance. So there's a similar thing which has happened in the case of Union of India versus Bahulal. There was a counter offer which was made. However, later on the person changes his mind and he says, okay, fine, I agree to purchase this at the original price only. But this type of offer is a counter offer which makes the original offer lapses. So say now in our example of iPhone 13, I made an offer to sell it to you at 80,000. However, you say, okay, I agree to buy it, but I'll buy it at 75,000 and not 80,000. So as soon as you put this condition, as soon as you place this price of 75,000 here, it makes the offer, the original offer, lapse. Now you change your mind and you think that I'll not get a better deal than this. So let me buy this for 80,000 from you. You come back and say, okay, fine, I agree to purchase it at 80,000. You have now lost the right to accept this price of 80,000 because this conditional counter offer of yours has made the original offer lapse. So putting a condition forth an offer will make the original offer lapse. The next essential element of acceptance is that acceptance must be communicated. See, if you are accepting an offer, you should also communicate about the acceptance. If acceptance is not communicated, how will the offerer come to know that you have accepted the offer? He is not going to get a dream that, okay, fine, the offer which I made has been accepted by the offeree and now the contract has come into existence. There's nothing as telepathy which works here. You will have to communicate about your acceptance. You cannot say to yourself that, okay, fine, I accept the offer, and the offerer will come to know of it. You will have to go to him, inform the offerer that I accept your offer, and only then the offerer will come to know of it. He'll not come to know of it just like that, right? So it is very important that the acceptance must be communicated. Communication of acceptance is very, very, very important. Now, say for example, you come to me with with an agreement. You've come to me with an agreement and you want my signatures on this agreement. You ask me to read the agreement, sign on the agreement, and give it to you. If I agree with whatever has been stated here, sign on it and approve it. Now I read the agreement, I sign on the agreement. However, I keep this agreement in my drawer. Now, will you come to know about my acceptance like this? I have kept the agreement in my drawer. Will you come to know about my acceptance?
No, ma'am.
I'll have to inform you that I have accepted your agreement, and only then you will come to know about it. So it is very important that acceptance must be communicated. Communication of acceptance is very, very, very important. Now, something like this happened in case of Brogden versus Metropolitan Railway Company. So similarly here, the manager, he had this agreement with him. He writes approved, keeps it in his drawer, and the communication did not happen at all. So there was no acceptance because the acceptance was not communicated. So it is very important that the communication of acceptance is done to the promisor. Acceptance must be communicated to the promisor. The next one is acceptance has to be in a prescribed mode. Now say I've made an offer to you and I tell you that if you accept, please give me a call. Or I've specifically mentioned that message me on WhatsApp about your acceptance. If I'm being very specific as to what should be your mode of acceptance, you have to follow that mode of acceptance. I said call me to give your acceptance, you have to call. If I say WhatsApp me, message me on WhatsApp about your acceptance, message me on WhatsApp about your acceptance. If I say mail about your acceptance to me, then it has to be by mail. So if there's a mode which has been prescribed for acceptance, then the communication of acceptance also has to be in that mode. If there's a proper mode, if I have specifically stated that your acceptance has to be communicated in so and so manner, then in that situation, the acceptance has to be communicated in that manner only and no other way. So when the acceptance prescribes a particular manner, when the offerer, he says that the acceptance has to be communicated in a particular manner, the acceptance has to be communicated in that manner only. And if nothing has been mentioned, then in a normal course, however the acceptance is communicated, the acceptance has to be communicated in that manner. If say I do not mention anything that how the acceptance has to be communicated, then it has to be a normal acceptance. If the acceptance requires mail it. If a message is fine, message would also be a proper mode of communication if nothing is mentioned. But however, if something has been specifically mentioned, then the acceptance has to be in that prescribed mode only. Clear? Are you all clear with all of these things, all of these points? There are a few more to go.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what should be the time within which the acceptance should be given? Say if there's a specified time limit, say the offerer has given say 10 days to give the acceptance, or say 1 week to give the acceptance, then the acceptance has to be communicated within that time span. However, say if the offerer has not specified any time span, then in that situation, the acceptance has to be communicated within reasonable time. Now, what is reasonable time? Depends from situation to situation, differs on the basis of what the offer is for. So if a time is fixed, then the communication of acceptance must be done within that fixed time. However, if there's no time which has been fixed, it has to be within a reasonable time. Now, what is reasonable time will differ from situation to situation and case to case, depending upon what the offer is. So in some situations, 1 week would be a reasonable time. However, in some situation, 1 month would be a reasonable time. In some situation, 1 day would be a reasonable time. So what is reasonable time differs from situation to situation. So acceptance also has to be made within some specified time limit. Reasonable time is something within which the acceptance has to be made. Now, please understand there's no definition of reasonable time given. Reasonable time will be decided on the basis of situation, on the basis of the type of offer which is being made. And now comes the most important point, and that is mere silence does not amount to acceptance. If someone is quiet, you've made an offer to someone and that other person remains quiet, you cannot assume that other person's silence as acceptance. Now here I am asking a question since a very long time that have you understood, is it clear, any doubts? Now I get response only from 2 or 3 people and the other people are silent. So here I am forced to assume that your silence is acceptance. However, silence does not amount to acceptance. If someone's quiet, you cannot say, okay, fine, this person is quiet, it means that they have accepted my offer. No such thing can be done. Mere silence does not amount to acceptance. Now here there's a case law, and that is Feldhaus versus Bingley. Let's have a look at this case law, Feldhaus versus Bingley. Now what happened here was a person, Mr. Feldhaus, he offered to buy his nephew's house for 30 pounds. And when he made this offer, he says, if I hear no more, I shall consider the horse mine for 30 pounds. He simply states, if you do not say anything, I'll consider that this horse is mine for 30 pounds. And the nephew, he does not reply to the uncle's question. Now, since he did not reply, and looking at this statement, the uncle assumes the horse to be his. Now, this nephew, he had many horses, so his horses were being auctioned. The nephew, he tells the auctioneer to keep a particular horse aside for his uncle. However, the auctioneer, he sells the horse which was reserved for his uncle. The auctioneer by mistake sells the horse which was reserved for Mr. Feldhaus. Now, when Mr. Feldhaus comes back, he files a case against Bingley, against his nephew, that he sold the house, he sold the horse which was mine. Now, do you think in this situation, Mr. Feldhaus will succeed in the case?
No, ma'am.
He'll not. Why is that so? Because here the nephew was silent. There was no communication of acceptance which had happened. And since there's no communication of acceptance, it does not mean that acceptance has been made, since mere silence does not amount to acceptance. Now, there's one question which we are often asked about case laws. You do not have to write the entire case law in examination. You only have to quote the name of the case law and state that similar situation or similar scenario was something which happened in this case law, and state the name of the case law. You do not have to write the entire case law in the examination. However, you will have to remember the case law, because only then you will be able to relate the case study based questions with the case laws. So you do not have to replicate the entire case law. You do not have to write the facts of the case. Just remember what was the fact and what was the judgment which was given, and quote the name of the case law. Clear? Now, there can also be implied acceptance or acceptance by conduct. Now, this is something which is similar to an implied offer or an implied contract. So if a person he performs something as acceptance, as acceptance to the offer which is being made, by his conduct he signifies his acceptance. He does something which was stated in the offer, basically implies his acceptance. Now, say for example, you place an order with Zomato, you place an order with Swiggy. So there is an offer. When your order is accepted, you get a message that yes, your order has been accepted. Or when you place an order with Flipkart, they deliver the products at your place, which implies that they have accepted your offer. Or say you've placed an order with a nearby grocery store for some groceries. Now, when they deliver the grocery at your place, by their conduct, it is implied that they have accepted the offer which you have made to purchase grocery from them. So acceptance can also be implied by the conduct of the parties. So these were certain rules regarding acceptance. What are the different rules which shall be complied with for an acceptance to be a valid acceptance? Are you all clear with all the rules regarding valid acceptance?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts, any questions, anyone?
No, ma'am.
Any question, anyone? Okay, I have no answer, so I'll have
No,
to
ma'am.
assume your acceptance has to, your silence has to be as acceptance. So let's now talk of communication of offer. When do we say that an offer is communicated? When is the communication of offer complete? So it is very simple. Communication of offer is complete when it comes to the knowledge of offeree. So when the offeree comes to know about the offer, we say that the communication of offer is complete. Let's understand this with help of an example. Now say today is 10th of October. On 10th of October, Mr. Sanjay is writing a letter of offer to Mr. Raj. Now this letter reaches Mr. Raj on 14th of October. However, Mr. Raj, he reads the letter on 15th of October. Now you tell me what will be the date of communication of offer in this particular situation?
15th offer. 15th.
15th of October, not 14th of October.
15th October.
Why not 14th of October?
In 15th October, Raj had read the letter.
So he comes to know about the offer only when he reads the letter. On 14th of October, the letter reached him. However, he did not read the letter, which implies that he did not come to know of the offer on 14th of October. So 15th of October is the date when Raj comes to know of the offer. So the communication of offer is complete on 15th of October. 15th of October is the date of completion of communication of offer. Clear? So when is the communication of offer complete? Communication of offer is complete when it comes to the knowledge of the person to whom it is made. That is when comes to the knowledge of the offeree. When the offer comes to the knowledge of the offeree, the communication of offer is complete. Is this clear? Are you all clear with this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Now let's talk of communication of acceptance. Now, when we talk of communication of acceptance, acceptance can either be communicated over telephone, over mails, by letters, So these are certain means of communication of acceptance. By conduct of the parties also in certain situations, the communication is acceptance of communication of acceptance is given. Now, when we talk about communication of acceptance, it is divided into two parts. From the offerers or proposers point of view, from the acceptors point of view. So when is the communication of acceptance complete from the proposer's point of view, and when is the communication of acceptance complete from the acceptor's point of view? So there are two different situations here. From the offerers or the proposer's point of view, the communication of acceptance is complete when the letter is put into the course of transmission. That is when the letter is posted. That is the time when the communication of acceptance is complete from the offerer's point of view. However, from the acceptor's point of view, the communication of acceptance is complete when it comes to the knowledge of offerer. Let's understand this with help of an example. Now say 10th of October, 14th of October, 15th of October. Let's continue with the above example only. So this was the date when the offer letter was posted. Letter reached offeree. Offeree read the letter. Now what happens is offeree, that is Mr. Raj, after reading the letter on 15th, he writes the letter of acceptance on 16th of October and posts this letter of acceptance on 16th of October. Now this letter of acceptance, it reaches Mr. Sanjay on 19th of October. So what is happening here? On 16th of October, the offeree, he has posted his letter of acceptance. So now the offeree has become the acceptor. So 16th of October here will be the date of communication of acceptance. From whose point of view? From the acceptor's point of view. That is from Sanjay's point of view. From the proposer's point of view, sorry. So for Mr. Sanjay, the acceptance has been completed on 16th of October. However, from the acceptor's point of view, that is Mr. Raj, the communication of acceptance is complete on 19th of October. Is this clear? So when we are talking of communication of acceptance, the communication of acceptance is complete from the offerer or the proposer's point of view when the letter is put into the course of transmission. However, the communication of acceptance is complete from the acceptor's point of view when the offerer comes to know about the acceptance. Is this clear? Are you all clear with this? You all can make a note of this or take a picture of this because it will be easier for you to recollect this when you are revising again, because this is one place wherein a lot of confusion happens later on. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So against the proposer, the communication of acceptance is complete when the letter is put into the course of transmission, and from the acceptor's point of view, the letter is acceptance, communication of acceptance is complete when it comes to the knowledge of the proposer, when the offerer comes to know about it. Now, why is that so? The reason is why a different date from the offerer's point of view, and why a different date from acceptor's point of view. The reason is very simple. Just like say Sanjay has now changed his mind and he wants to revoke the offer, he wants to take back his offer. So there has to be a time span until which he can take his offer back. So offer can be revoked at any time before it is accepted. Now, for acceptance also there are two conditions, from acceptor's point of view and from offerer's point of view. From offerer's point of view, the acceptance is complete when the letter is put into the course of transmission. So until the letter is put into the course of transmission, the offerer can revoke the offer. So an offer can be revoked till it is accepted. An offer can be revoked till the communication of acceptance is complete from the offerer's point of view. And similarly here, now say Raj has changed his mind, the acceptor has changed his mind and he wants to revoke acceptance. So acceptance can be revoked till the communication of acceptance is complete from the acceptor's point of view. And that is the reason why there are two different point of views which have been given for completion of communication of acceptance. Now, in certain situations, there are some special conditions which are tacitly communicated. Tacitly means silently. They are not communicated orally or in writing, orally or specifically. However, they're tacitly communicated, silently communicated, and it is assumed that these conditions are silently accepted as well. Now, whenever you fly or whenever you are traveling by rail, there are certain terms and conditions written on your flight ticket, on your rail ticket, which we do not even bother to read, right? We do not bother to read those asterisk marks, those small terms and conditions which are stated, and that's where the problem arises. Those are certain special conditions which are not orally communicated, but still it is assumed that these special conditions are silently communicated and silently accepted. So sometimes there are certain special conditions which are not conveyed orally but rather tacitly, and it is also assumed that the acceptor has given his acceptance to those conditions tacitly. So sometimes what happens is that it is clearly stated on the railway ticket, say that we are not responsible for loss of any luggage, we will not be held responsible for any of that. Now you do not read it and you blame the railway authorities for loss of your luggage. Now the railway authorities will not take any responsibility for your luggage here in this situation. They say, did you read the instructions given? Did you read the terms and conditions given on your ticket clearly? You will say, I did not. So there are some situations wherein sometimes the special conditions, they are communicated tacitly, and the acceptance to these special conditions is also given tacitly. People do not come to know about it that they have given their acceptance to the condition. However, acceptance has been given. So that was with respect to communication of special conditions. They are tacitly conveyed and tacitly accepted. So similarly on airline ticket also, it is stated that in case of loss of any life, we would not compensate, or rather we would not, it is at your own risk. At some places, say you go for skydiving, you are made to sign a form, you're made to sign a declaration, you're made to sign a form that if anything happens, the authorities there are not responsible. Say you go for bungee jumping. Now when you're going for bungee jump or any other adventure activities, the responsibility solely is yours. If something happens to you, it is not the responsibility of the authorities there. So they clearly state all of it in the form which is given to you. And if you do not read the form and only sign the form without reading it, it is your problem, not theirs. So some special conditions are conveyed tacitly and they are also accepted tacitly. So this was about communication of certain special conditions. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now let's talk of revocation of offer and acceptance. So an offer can be revoked at any time before communication of acceptance is complete against offerer. So as we have understood already, offer can be revoked before the completion of communication of acceptance from the offerer's point of view, and acceptance can be revoked at any time before the communication of acceptance is complete from the acceptor's point of view. Now talking of communication of revocation. Now, when we talk of communication of revocation, again, here there are two time spans which is being given. From the point of view of person who is revoking, it is same for offer and acceptance, whether it is revocation of offer or whether it is revocation of acceptance. So it is from the point of view of person who is revoking and from the point of view of person against whom the revocation is made. So from the point of view of person who is revoking, the communication of revocation is complete when he puts the letter into the course of transmission. And from the point of view of the person against whom the revocation is made, the communication of revocation is complete when he comes to know about it. So the person who is revoking, from his point of view, the communication of revocation is complete when he puts the letter into the course of transmission. However, against the person against whom the revocation is made, when he comes to know about it, the communication of revocation is complete at that particular point, at that particular time. So the person who is making the revocation, when he puts it into the course of transmission, the communication is complete at that time. The person against whom it is made, when he comes to know about it, the revocation is completed, communication is completed that time. So if you understand, this is completely opposite to what we have understood about completion of communication of acceptance. So there it was the person who was posting it, from the other person's point of view, it was complete. However, here the person who is posting it, the person who is making the revocation, when he posts the letter, the communication of revocation is complete at that particular point of time. However, from the person against whom the revocation is made, when the person comes to know about the revocation, the communication of revocation is complete at that particular time. Clear? Did you all understand about the communication of revocation?
Yes, ma'am.
Of offer acceptance is again a very important point. This is a place wherein most of the students get confused at a lot many times because of these different time spans of completion of communication. So let me know, have you all understood it very clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, I'll take 5 more minutes. There are only a few more points in this chapter. So what are the modes of revocation of offer? So what are the ways in which offer can be revoked? First is you can give a notice of revocation, basically expressly communicating that you want to revoke the offer. So by giving a notice of revocation, the offer can be revoked. The second situation is by lapse of time. Say a time limit was given for acceptance of offer, or when the offer is not accepted within a reasonable time, then when the time lapses, the offer also lapses. If there are some conditions which are attached to the offer and those conditions are not fulfilled, then in that situation also the offer will be revoked. If the acceptor, he had to perform some conditions and he does not fulfill those conditions, then in that situation also the offer is revoked. If the offerer dies or if the offerer becomes insane, that will also lead to revocation of offer. Counter offer will make the original offer lapse, so that will automatically revoke the original offer. Subsequent illegality, say when the offer was made, the subject matter was legal. However, subsequently government changes the rules and regulations, making the offer illegal. So subsequent illegality will also make the offer revoke, is also a situation wherein the offer will be revoked. And if the acceptance is not given in a prescribed mode, if there was a particular mode which was prescribed for acceptance and the acceptance has not been given in that particular mode, then in that situation as well the offer will be revoked. So these are the different modes of revocation of offer, the situations where the offer will be revoked. So with this, we have now understood what is a contract, what is an agreement, what is offer, acceptance, and all the different things with respect to nature of contract. So have you all understood it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any doubts, any questions? Tomorrow, we'll first start with 2 or 3 questions. We'll solve 2 or 3 questions. Then we'll go to unit 2 consideration. So make sure that you revise everything, whatever we have completed today. It will hardly take 15 to 20 minutes, not more than that. I hope you all have understood everything we discussed very clearly. Yes. So
Yes,
I'll
ma'am.
questions tomorrow, be prepared. And we'll also understand how do you write answers to different questions when questions are asked in examination. Okay. So have a nice day, and also make sure that you join the class on time. Today, since it was the first day, we were waiting for people to join in. Now tomorrow, we are going to start exactly at 3:30. So that you are on time. Okay. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.